to the Talent Optimization Podcast, the go-to podcast for CEOs and HR professionals wanting to bridge the gap between the strategy and tactical implementation of talent optimization within their organizations. Through interviews, predictive index, and personal experience, your host, Tracy Shirk, helps you discover the facets of talent optimization from both a CEO and HR perspective to truly create the dream team for your organization. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Welcome to Talent Optimization. How many of you utilize LinkedIn consistently to really build your network, but then you take that network off online into in person? So with us today, we have a really special guest, and Joe is with us to talk about how we really utilize LinkedIn to do that. He comes to us from both great experience, from business writing, from writing a book called High Energy Networking, and he's going to share a little bit of our motivation with us as we get started. So Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here. I'm excited about the concept of inspiration, of relationships, of connection. And I think that people are going to get a lot out of this show. So I'm excited about talking to you today, Tracy.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I get all the time, especially when I'm networking on LinkedIn, is how do you actually use it to make meaningful, authentic connections?
When it comes to using,
why are we going to spend the time on it, right?
Yeah, when it comes to using LinkedIn, there are two things. There's technically how to use it, how to log in and click buttons, and then there's strategically how to use it. Most people, they both don't know how to use it technically and they don't know how to use it strategically. And as a result, they end up going in there and lurking. Lurking means you're just looking and you're like watching in the dark. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
What am I doing here? I see a feed. I'm not sure if I should like it. What if my manager sees it? What if somebody else sees it? What if I say the wrong thing? I'm in a business platform. I better keep quiet. So a lot of people are just, it's not inspiring not to be part of the conversation. It's not inspiring just to kind of watch from the stands. We want to be in the game. We want to be playing the game. So building real relationships using LinkedIn does take knowing how to use it technically. But more importantly, it's 80% mindset, 20% skill set. It's more importantly, like, what do you want to achieve from this? If you're a manager, if you're a professional in any role, you can benefit from networking. And some of those benefits you don't see right away. It's more long-term. And some of those benefits is just feeling good in the moment, feeling inspired. When I have a conversation with another professional, another peer, for example, I just had a conversation with 5 CEOs. Guess where I met them? LinkedIn. I said, let's all get together and have a Zoom and talk about our challenges and support each other. And I left that conversation feeling changed, feeling inspired, feeling motivated. I felt so good about being part of that conversation. And I want you to feel that same feeling. I want you to be inspired and I want you to lean into your relationships.
And thank you so much for sharing that, because that 80-cent, of that inspiration, we all get inspired differently and we all network and connect differently. And that's something that I think is incredibly, incredibly important, not just for our managers, but for our staff, right? I just got off a call with an employee inside of an organization about, hey, how are you inspired by your team and why do you work here? And what he said to me was, they appreciate me.
Appreciation is so powerful. When we teach people how to DM, we teach them that there's a greeting, feeding, and meeting method. So like, building rapport is greeting, and then feeding is showing appreciation, asking questions, really getting to know people. And then meeting is where you actually get on the phone or take it offline. But most people try to skip it and say, let's have a coffee, but that's not inspiring. What's inspiring is showing gratitude. If you want to be great, be grateful.
Oh, I love that. If you want to be great, be grateful, right? And so often we miss that key point with our staff. And as we're not only inspiring our managers, but we're inspiring the staff inside of our organizations. And one of those key things with inspiring the staff inside of our organizations and our managers is sharing those key items about that the way they want to be shared with. So for some, if I were to post their picture all over LinkedIn or invite them on the podcast, that would not be the way that they would be inspired. and they would be terrified. Others are like, oh my gosh, can I get there? How do I do it? So I'm curious, how do you figure that out by networking on LinkedIn and then taking that into real life?
Really getting to know your employees or your peers is really going to be the key. Networking and building relationships, it's not just about a transactional thing that I'll do this for you and you do this for me. It's more about really getting to know people and building a relationship. Sometimes being there with somebody can save their life. Sometimes saying hello to somebody can save their life. They say that just, walking over to somebody and ask them how they're doing could save them from committing suicide. So it's really important for you to take a moment and just acknowledge people of their existence, the fact that they're alive, and also just getting to know what their preferences are. Are they a Leo? Do they like being out there? Are they more of an Aquarius or a Cancer where they like hiding under the rock and being more like of a relator, like a personal interest? So getting to know your employees, getting to know your peers, getting to know other professionals will figure out what they're into. And at that point, you can support them and give them what they want. Everybody loves recognition, especially public recognition. Not everybody wants to share their photo online, but everybody loves recognition. I think it was Napoleon Hill. No, it was Dale Carnegie that said he wrote a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And in that book, he says that when you're going fishing, you don't use strawberries and cream to catch the fish. You use worms. The same thing with human beings. You don't just use anything. You use appreciation, because every human being loves to be appreciated, because what you appreciate appreciates in value. If you want to appreciate, if you want to increase in value, your relationships or even your plants, appreciate them. And if you appreciate them, you're going to do. And if you do it publicly, it doesn't have to be with a photo. It could be, hey, giving somebody a shout out. And on LinkedIn, you have the ability to give people shout outs. That's not just inspiring for yourself that you're a giver. It's inspiring for them, but it's also inspiring for the other employees that are watching what happened. If you have core values in your organization, for example, one of the things that you can do as a practice, and we do this in our organization, is share publicly the stories of how the employees are conforming or living the core values of the organization, which again is inspiring. Usually the core values is not something that's aspirational. It's something that you're experiencing right now. And that is inspiration when people are like, oh, wow, our core value is amazing communication. And this person went above and beyond in customer service. And this is the story. And that inspires your clients. It inspires your employees. But it also gives the organization exposure, because whenever you post on LinkedIn, all the people that are connected to you have the opportunity to see that on the LinkedIn feed. So doing that continuously will help you be able to get more exposure both internally and externally, and will also be able to inspire more people to do the same.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you talk about a little bit is fulfillment, right? So we're talking about inspiring individuals, right? But part of that is being fulfilled in the work that we're doing, and you have this line, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And, as we're inspiring not only our managers and our teams and our families and all those things, just by how we live our life every day, if we're not fulfilling those things and being fulfilled in what we're doing, that does create a void or a gap. And you talked about some mental health things earlier. So I'm curious, what's your take on that? And what's that distinction between that in-person versus online?
Well, I believe that people are much more persuasive in person than they are online. Actually, there's a study that came out that human beings are 34 times more persuasive, more influential when you are in person than through email or whatever. So being in person, because only 7% of our communication is actually words, the rest of it's body language, tone, and everything else. And when you're in person, there's also a certain level of energy exchange where you can feel someone's energy, someone's presence. And so the whole concept of in-person versus online, in-person definitely is going to trump every single time. But online is more about staying top of mind and connecting and keeping the connectivity going. What I always tell people is that digital marketing serves a major, major purpose. It allows us to create more trust. It allows us to create a bond. It doesn't replace the offline connectivity or the phone connectivity or the Zoom connectivity, but it does allow us to maintain the connectivity. We call them weak ties throughout the process, throughout the cycle. So, let's say you have 100 employees or 200 employees. You can't connect with every single one in person all the time, but you can see the people that are active online. Now, in terms of mental health and fulfillment in general, what you mentioned earlier, I believe that self-expression is life. What does that mean, that self-expression is life? We all have a need, a basic human need to express our energy. Now, some people express themselves through art. Some people express themselves through rapping. Some people express themselves through singing, through dancing, through writing, through all different types of ways, so through playing sports or whatever it is. So there's many different ways that you can actually express yourself, and LinkedIn gives you the ability to express yourself in the comments, to express yourself in posts, to express yourself in a business setting. So if you're not expressing yourself right now, you have the opportunity to allow your staff to do it, to give them a medium to do it, to show that your culture is an inspiring culture where people lean in to the important topics that your business represents. And so if you have people that are more confident, they have more trust that what they're going to say is not going to hurt their career, it becomes a more inspiring environment where people start speaking up.
Yeah, and that trust becomes really important, right? And so a lot of our listeners are HR folks. So how you write that social media policy becomes really important to this, and how you're encouraging that as well. And you had mentioned kind of the lurkers earlier. And guess what? Even though only 7% comes through in writing, guess what? You're providing visibility for those lurkers, and you're also allowing individuals to really see, here's what we're doing and here's how, and just ensuring that the individuals that you're posting on there or who you're talking about or the pictures that they actually want to be on there. And I think that that's so incredibly important, because that self-expression, as you said, shows up in different ways, whether it's online or in person inside of our organizations as we're chatting with our staff.
And also doing like surveys and getting to know your employees and figuring out what is your preference. Would you like to be on, by default, a lot of people are going to just say no to that, because they're like, if I have a choice of whether am I going to be promoted online or not, I'd rather just not be promoted. Like people are pretty private, or they're scared. 90% of people are afraid of public speaking. And that's the same amount of people that are afraid of networking, because networking is a form of public speaking. But as people build more trust, and as they have more confidence in the organization and in your processes and in your systems, and as they get educated on how to use LinkedIn and how it works and the benefits to their career, that's why we go in and train teams on how to use LinkedIn, on how to leverage LinkedIn, whether it's the HR team or the business development team or the account management team, because that helps them be able to create more opportunities for the organization. We all have personal networks of 150 to 200 people. We all have a personal network. The question is, are you leveraging your personal network to help you with your career and to help your organization? Or are you keeping church and state completely separate, and you're like, my personal life's my personal life and I'm not dealing it? But even in business, we get to meet vendors. We get to meet all different types of people, and they're looking at your staff online. They're looking at your company. They can see who works there. They can see if people have updated profiles. They can see if people are active. And if someone wants to acquire your firm, or if you want to add more enterprise value, it's important for you to have a culture of transparency, a culture of connection, a culture of people supporting each other, and educating your employees and the staff members on how to do that on LinkedIn could be very, very useful.
Yeah, so as you were chatting there a second, the picture that pops in my mind, and there was a number of these around Christmas time, it was, here's a picture of our staff that is Zoom ready, right? So we've got the suit on top, and we've got the yoga pants and the Hello Kitty slippers on the bottom, right? And it's showing that vulnerability of, guess what? Yes, there's times where we're show ready, but there's also times where, we just want to work comfortably in what we're doing. And that's so incredibly important in that. And as we're networking, showing our whole selves and being authentic in what we're doing really allows us to build that trust within our team, and inspires that team to also share with us, because the more that we can connect with each other, the more trust we're going to have when things don't go right. And guess what? Things don't always go right.
They definitely don't.
Yeah, they just don't. And so, there's a key piece of accountability of what are those key things that we're looking for that are important to the organization, right? So one of the things we chat about with all of our clients is, hey, every single organization has a business strategy. What is it? Then what are those business outcomes that you are looking to achieve? And, LinkedIn can be a great use for, hey, how we achieve those business outcomes, especially if it's in a sales role. But right now, there's so much that you can get from recruiting and just having some key information out there about your organization. So I'm curious, how do you utilize accountability to get to those really important goals?
Well, the way I utilize accountability is first figuring out what are my key performance indicators? What does ROI look like? What do I want to achieve from this? What are the goals ultimately? It might be more employee engagement. It might be more business development. It might be more exposure or getting the employees to engage on the company page or whatever it is. So figuring out what the goal is and what we're looking to achieve will help me be able to determine how to create accountability to get closer to the goal. If I want to lose weight, I want accountability to show up to run, 3 times a week, and I want someone to hold me accountable for that. But if I don't know what I want to achieve and I don't have a clear goal set up, and I also don't have the technical tools or the strategies to do it, chances of me engaging in it are very low. So what I always tell people is if you want to have strong accountability, you have to have strong vision with very specific metrics, and you have to have like a framework or education for the team to be able to engage with that. And the key is to keep things simple. If you keep things too complicated, if you may convolute things, people are not going to engage with that. So I always like keeping things really, really simple, like a simple rap beat. I just, really smooth, getting down. Just like that, something like that. Just like really, really smooth.
And showing kind of who you are and that, your own thumbprint on exactly who you are and how you work, right? And every single one of us had those different personality styles. And you did take the predictive index, and we know that you are an incredibly wide maverick, correct?
Correct.
Which means you're an out-of-the-box thinker that wants to put your thumbprint on things. So your rap absolutely does it. I love it. So as we kind of start to kind of bring our conversation in, what's a key takeaway that you have for our executives and our CEOs listening in?
Make sure that you train your team on what you want them to do with social media. If you have 5 employees or you have 1,000 employees, having a social media policy and then having training along with your social media policy will help you be able to ensure that you're not just the one driving marketing or driving recruiting or driving awareness for the company, but it's really the people. The way that things changed in 2020 and 2022 and moving forward is that it used to be the voice was based on the media, but now the voice is based on the individuals. People can go up and make a TikTok that will go viral and their song becomes a #1 bestseller song because they showed up, they leaned in. Your company's success is going to be determined by the systems and processes you put in enabling your employees to help you achieve your goals. So if your goal is to get more talent, your employees can help you do that. If your goal is to get more clients or to get better customer service, your employees can help you do that. And so there's a very, very underutilized strategy to leverage your current people. Now, there is a fear that a lot of people have that their employees are going to get poached if there's exposure to their employees. So there's 2 sides to the sword, and you can, have a really good culture where if people even get offered to get poached, they're not going to want to leave. That's the goal, not you're keeping people there, because ultimately people can look. They can go to Glassdoor, they can go online, they can see what you're really about. Everything's very transparent. So if you create systems and process, they say if you don't have a will, there's a will for you. If you don't have an operating agreement, there's an operating agreement for you. If you don't have a social media policy, it's the wild, wild west. And so making sure that you educate your business development team, you educate your marketing team, you educate your recruiting team on the best practices, on what works, what you expect of them, what you're looking for, and then reward them for it and make sure that it's aligned with your values and your mission. It'll help you move your organization forward.
Awesome. And what's a takeaway that you have for HR folks listening in?
For HR folks, if you're looking for more talent, make it really clear about what you're looking for. A lot of them aren't necessarily putting out there what they're looking for, and they're also not rewarding people for that activity. And the other thing is getting to know your staff, like looking at their stuff on social media, reviewing their posts, reviewing their activity. With LinkedIn, you can see a person's first name, last name, company name, where they worked, where they went to school, but you could also see what they're doing, what they're liking on, and really getting to know people. See who are the people that want to be out there, that want to be elevated. Survey them, get to know them, and then elevate them by featuring them in your marketing, by featuring them in your collateral. There's a lot of people that are that have,
if they want to be, right?
Right. That's why I said survey them.
Yeah. If they want to be, of course.
Yeah. That's why I say survey them, get to know them. And the people that actually want the exposure, give it to them, because it not only will help the organization, it'll also help them feel more inspired as well.
Absolutely. And I think it was about a month ago now on the podcast, we brought on an employee. He's the senior yard guy at one of our clients. And he shared about how he was inspired by some of the management changes and some of the talent optimization kind of practices that were woven into the organization, and how important that was. And at the end of our conversation, he says to me, he goes, Tracy, can you let me know when this goes? Because I want to share it with all my friends and family, right, on social media. And, we all want to be acknowledged for who we are. And when we can create that culture, it ripples throughout and it impacts who we attract, whether it's employees or clients or friends, right, into our lives. So with that, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you are curious for knowing a little bit more about, we've talked about predictive index a little bit throughout our conversation today and these different behavioral styles, we have that on our show notes. We also have some of the links to Joe's books and information. So if you're interested in some of that LinkedIn training or some of that other information, we have all of those things in the show notes as well. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you next week.
Thank you very much. Boom.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Talent Optimization Podcast. You'll find more tools and resources for CEOs and HR professionals looking to bridge the strategies versus implementation gap of talent optimization at elevatedtalentconsulting.com. We've also created a free, valuable resource for you to begin bridging the gap called the Talent Optimization Foundation Membership Program. You can access it for free at elevatedtalentconsulting.com/foundation. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode to learn more about talent optimization and creating a dream team for your organization.